Is A Fever You Can't Sweat Out the best record from the peak of the emo scene? Did Brendon Urie and Ryan Ross create some of the biggest hits when they were just teenagers? We're reviewing the Panic at the Disco record, celebrating its 20th year anniversary. We'll talk about the history, the best tracks, and our spiciest takes. Welcome to the Emo Social Club. Let's dive in. Lizzie, it's time to talk about one of the records that we probably should have talked about way earlier.
Yes, of course.
But it is celebrating the 20th year anniversary of this album this year. A Fever You Can't Sweat Out by Panic at the Disco. Well, we both love this record.
Yeah, no one's going to say anything blasphemous about this record. I just
No,
want
we're
to
going to say something terrible. Keep watching.
It's the only way.
We're going to talk a lot about the history and the background of this band. There's a lot out there already. This is a very popular band, obviously. So there's a lot of people talking about this record for the 20th year anniversary, but also just because this band is hugely popular. So Panic at the Disco was formed in 2004 in Las Vegas, Nevada by high school friends Ryan Ross, who is guitar and lyrics, and Spencer Smith on drums. They then recorded Brendon Urie for vocals and guitar, and Brent Wilson on bass. So that is the core lineup of this album. Panic at the Disco was signed to Decadence Records without ever having performed live, based solely on demos they posted online. I think that was very unconventional for the time, where people said you have to put in your dues. But I'm going to be honest, I think that is a very common thing now.
Yeah, I was about to say, you would have to be not hard-pressed to find this happening anymore, but it's almost industry plant level to an extent currently in like 2025. Back then, you could just hit up certain people a little bit easier. Now it's a lot more difficult.
We have seen this with a lot of bands, especially on Decadence and Fueled by Ramen and the Pete Wentz Fall Out Boy, Fueled by Ramen cinematic universe. It certainly was like Pete Wentz picking and choosing some people. I think he picked and chose well, but he definitely brought on a lot of his friends into the scene and into his community that I think, you know, they got away with a little bit more because it was just like a small label of a label of a label that they could kind of do whatever they want. And I don't really have complaints. Good.
No, I think that's the one time where if you have a Nepo friend, because that was kind of what it is. And then that's the one time it's a good Nepo friend. It's the one time it's good to be a little Nepo-y over there.
Hey. Great Nepo friend. All right, let's talk about this record. It was released September 27th, 2005. It was recorded with friend of the pod, Matt Squire, who we've had on one time at least, who also has talked a lot about this record, but also produced a lot of different like pop acts and emo acts and across the board. Just a very good producer. I think we love a lot of his records. The genre of this album, I've seen this word thrown around a lot, of Baroque pop.
Yeah.
Can you name a single other Baroque pop artist?
No, because I probably don't listen to them. Because it's probably too obscure outside of this realm for me.
Truly. It has pop punk, emo aesthetics to it. But I do think emo started to be defined more by this record than this record being defined by emo. Especially when you talk about like mallcore and mall emo type stuff. But also electronica, dance punk, a lot of other stuff that was definitely being brought in from other places at the time. Not something that was so prominent in the Warped Tour and the Fueled by Ramen world at that time. So I think that was definitely what this band brought into it.
No, I definitely think that they did way more to allow more people in those kind of like outside genres to come in and also say it's okay that you have electronics. It's okay if you're going to be more theatrically based, things of that nature. And we have definitely seen that a lot throughout the years afterwards. And I'm a big fan of being very elaborate and over the top when it comes to really honing into your craft in that way.
Theatricality is something that we've lost a lot of. I think of artists now like Chappell Roan. Lady Gaga has always been a very theatrical artist. You know, these are kind of the people that are carrying that theater in music into the future, whereas I feel like too much in rock music has kind of said we don't want to do something too flashy and
be flashy, make it fun, be different.
Some of the themes of this record: literary sophistication. There is a heavy influence from Chuck Palahniuk's nonlinear storytelling here.
My favorite author.
There is so much in this record that I do think that is something that's been lost over time, is how much Ryan Ross was like a big Chuck head.
Ryan Ross, hit me up. Let's chat about it. I have
But it's
almost every one of his books.
If I may, though, this was like an 18-year-old reading Chuck Palahniuk and saying, I'm 18 and this is deep, and then writing a theater record about it.
I think that's funny because the ones that they're primarily pulling from are Choke, Diary, and Invisible Monsters, and a little bit of Fight Club.
Yeah.
Which obvious is Fight Club. You know, if you're basic,
That's
you
the
of course
biggest
know
one.
what it is.
That's the biggest one.
Invisible Monsters, though, is crazy good because a lot of those different iconic lines are basically transmuted from what was written originally by Palahniuk there. And I think that is so interesting because if you ever read Invisible Monsters, it is a wild revenge crash course, also talking about transness and acceptance and just like all things like body horror as well. So it's crazy to see a lot of these books be influenced for a fever you can't sweat out.
It is also, there are a lot of songs on this that are obviously very personal for Ryan Ross, who wrote a lot of the lyrics on this. So certainly these books are one piece of the things that he's taking from, but I'm sure he found a lot of like influence of how he wanted to describe those things for himself from the books. So not to take away and say this is all like other media that he's stealing from and taking it. Victorian and Baroque aesthetics on this, obviously we know from the music videos, but also the instrumentation.
Oh, yeah.
One of the other parts of this is that the record is split in half based on the instruments that are used and the sounds that are made. So on the first part, it is more of the electronic influences, the electronic instruments, and on the back end, it's more of the acoustic accordions and string instruments and a lot more of authentic instruments on the back end. And I think that's definitely where the Baroque aesthetics come in. So I guess Baroque pop is the second half of the record. And the first half is dance punk.
I think that's fine. I'll allow it.
That's fine.
Where else are we going to get our Baroque punk fix from? Baroque pop, whichever, really.
Infidelity and addiction, dark themes explored through elaborate metaphors. I mean, one thing that we always see thematically in these records is like relationships. Yeah. This one I don't feel has so much of like the romantic relationships. There's definitely some there, especially with Lying is the Most Fun. But there's also a lot more of like nuanced and complicated relationship styles in this. And there's definitely more of like Ryan Ross's personal like family dynamics at play here too. That's not just like the relationships with a partner at 18 years old.
If you listen to it when you're younger, you're not going to really understand the complexities of a lot of it. But I think if we imagine an 18-year-old writing that, I mean, me thinking about that at 30, I'm like, brother, what?
Let's talk a little more about how this is split in half, this record. So tracks 1 through 7 are electronic and dance punk heavy. Synthesizers are used, programmed drums, and a modern club influenced sound is how it's described. I would say this is the part where like they are creating what became like the scene sound. This is something that I can see directly correlating to bands like 303, Metro Station, who loved like the first half of this record that has these like dance breaks. Even bands like Attack and Asking Alexandria, who do breakdowns with these synthesizers over it. I see that as like what the beginning of this record created and the influence of that. At the intermission, there is a direct middle point of the record that says we're now going to move into a piano interlude, and then it becomes a piano song that bleeds into But It's Better If You Do, which has the first thing where it's like a ragtime piano, horns, string parts. And so the rest of it becomes non-traditional rock instrumentation with guitars and drums and all these pieces that we expect from an emo band, and definitely moves into more Victorian and vaudeville aesthetics after that. One reason I fell in love with this band so much is because I was a big fan of the movie Moulin Rouge. I saw similar aesthetics between that movie, where it took modern pop songs and reimagined them for the movie, but also had some definite electronic influences in that too, but was doing it in the vaudeville and Victorian era and the 20s of Paris, France. Obviously, the band loved Moulin Rouge too, because it was literally the Live in Denver background of the whole thing. So I think that is also a place where that influence came from, of splitting it in half and making these two modernized but also old school, and also like something we just hadn't really heard before.
It's kind of this timeless thought process. I kind of attribute that to how there are certain types of movies that are made and you don't really know what era is.
Yes.
Everything's mixed together. It's timeless. That's how I feel this album is, because there's so many components that go into it that I think at that time, and I even think, I would argue now, people wouldn't be brave enough to mix and meld together in this cinematic music form.
It's true. All right, let's talk about the reception and the impact of this record. It peaked at number 13 on the Billboard 200 after debuting at 112. It spent 88 weeks on the Billboard 200, certified quadruple platinum, which is 4 million U.S. shipments as of June 2023. Billboard, 10 years after its release, deemed it one of the most polarizing albums of our time.
That's great.
Because critics were divided between praising its theatricality and dismissing it as shallow mall emo. It was associated with like the My Chems, the Fall Out Boys, and all this because it was in that scene. It was boys wearing eyeliner, playing with guitars. It's not quite as deep as...
But the boys who are wearing the eyeliner in this band are also wearing floofy white shirts.
Yeah.
And top
floofy
hats.
shirts. Yeah.
And the other ones aren't. Just aren't.
Yeah. It was kind of connecting what was happening in the scene at that time. And there was a lot of like criticism of it as a passing fad, a passing fancy, if you will. It at the time was polarizing, but I would argue that over time and over the time of Panic at the Disco and the genre, this album I think is, I mean, the album is quadruple platinum. It clearly has stood out. It clearly has made its mark. Let's talk about what else was happening in 2005 when this album came out. Here's some other albums that were released that same year. Cork Tree, Fall Out Boy came out that same year. I believe it came out a little bit earlier. So this would have been right after, I mean, really right after Fall Out Boy's breakout record too, which I always thought was strange that these came out in the same year because it feels like it didn't really get its stride until 2006. But they literally came out like within a month apart from one another.
So you're like, which one are you going to pick? You know,
because it also, you can't say Brendan Urie does not sound like Patrick Stump.
You'll have to be like, wait, which one is this one?
Pete Wentz has said it. There's like a clip of them in the studio recording Foley, and Brendan and Patrick are singing like backup at the same time. And Pete Wentz is talking to the producer, like literally when we play a song for people, they're like, oh, but who is this? Like, which one of them is this? So I think in the context of what happened in 2005, these two records coming out at the same time and Cork Tree just massively exploding. But it took a little while for A Fever You Can't Sweat Out to really take off in the same way that Cork Tree did. Also in 2005, All We Know Is Falling by Paramore.
Perfect.
So this is also another Fueled by Ramen, Decadence related record that came out at the same time. Now, obviously, this is not the breakout that Riot was for Paramore, but still their first breakout onto the scene. They had a couple songs. It Was a Girl, which
that
was
was
weird.
The one thing because apparently women don't exist in
You're
the
not
scene.
allowed. The Academy is, we can't stop talking about the Academy is almost
They always
here.
keep
It came
coming
out the
back
same
around.
year. So like you had like 3 big emo releases from Fueled by Ramen and Decadence in that same year. And obviously Paramore's All We Know Is Falling came out, but it certainly did not reach the numbers of Riot. Right. Fueled by Ramen just had a very strong peak in 2005 that I think really, because it came out like sort of at the back end of the year, really bled into like the beginning of 2006 where a lot of these hit their stride. So I think the context of 2005 is like this was setting up for like the Warped Tour. This was creating like the vibe for what these bands were going to be going into the Warped Tour, the summer of 2005, and then the explosion of emo and mall emo and Hot Topic and all that happened after this. Some legacy to talk about with this record. It is one of the biggest emo records of all time.
Yeah.
Do you think that this record is one of the reasons we have the Black Parade?
I think for being theatrical, yes, to an extent, because if we look at everything that the Black Parade is and what they have done, I mean, besides 3 Cheers, of course, but that was when I feel, looking back at all these old videos of My Chem prior, that this is where they're like, no, we can like be extra.
Yeah.
Because other people are being extra, so it's okay for everyone else to do it.
I think that the second half of this record influenced a lot of bands to move more into this like acoustic sound of these other instruments. And I do think that My Chem, coming off of 3 Cheers in 2004, and then all of a sudden being like, oh, wait, but listen to like what Panic at the Disco did here. Like, we can definitely do something more theatrical, and the kids will absolutely go nuts for it.
Yeah, no one's going to say that's weird. Stop doing that.
Bonkers McGillicuddy on that. I'm getting bonkers McGillicuddy on this record.
I don't know if we should let you say some words sometimes.
Podcast. I was not really putting this in the context until I was really thinking about it, comparing what happened in 2006 with Black Parade and how big that record became, and what it would look like if not for Fever You Can't Sweat Out, doing half of the record with these instruments that clearly were utilized on Black Parade as well. There's horn sections, there's string sections, there's a lot more of that production on that record that was not on Three Cheers.
Right. And there's always those handful of albums that really stand out because of like those types of instrumentation. Right now, it's the sax for our current era.
Saxophone rules.
Sax man is everywhere, probably.
Keep doing it. One of the other things I think is something to consider with this was the decadence of it all, and signing these bands that you thought would become something that obviously could grow into a big band and become a mainstream act, whether or not they'd played shows, whether or not they'd done a lot of the other stuff. And I think it's because around this time was really when MySpace and these internet social medias took off. And Pete Wentz saw himself as something of a celebrity within this culture, and knew that like if he put his cosign on it, maybe had Patrick Stump produce something or whatever, he could make something a star just off of the virtue of like he knows what he's hearing and he likes it, and the Pete Wentz machine can make it happen. And I think this is like kind of the first sign of like, I can do this with basically anybody.
MySpace also had some of the biggest influencers of that scene, but because it was way too niche, they were just never able to reach that monetized status that we see now, to reach like a mainstream popularity. So there's definitely an avenue for where Pete Wentz, maybe any producer really, could go there and do their A&R rather than just going out to a normal club or bar, a dinky bar on like a Tuesday night and try to be like, that's the next one. They just said,
the next guy.
that's our guy over there. They just go on MySpace and say, here's 5 people who it seems like they're doing well. Let's check it out. Let's send an email.
They got a buzz online.
Yeah.
This is the first time it's like we have a buzz online that like really like sold artists to a label to get picked up and say, no, we'll figure out the touring stuff later. You got a buzz online. Let's make it happen. Yeah. Well, we're going to tell you what we think about this album. But before we do, we want you to make sure to subscribe to the channel here. We are doing monthly album reviews. But if you subscribe, you'll make sure that you are notified whenever we post another one of these. We will be at When We Were Young this week. So we are also doing some interviews and podcasts with the artists at the festival. We have a second channel for all of our podcast interviews. You can go and check that out in the description. All of our videos from Riot Fest are already up, so you can check out those now. And then make sure you find out when we do all the When We Were Young interviews. Those will all be posted up over there. You can also listen to all of these as audio podcasts. If you'd like to support us, we also have a Patreon, and you can become a member here on our YouTube channel. We are posting extended editions of these reviews, extended podcasts when we have them, and also exclusive reviews. Right after this, we'll be posting a review of the Cabs Whisper War, which has a lot of similarities to this album. So if you're a fan of that, make sure to become a member either on Patreon, here on YouTube, or we're also on volume.com. You can become a member there as well. We appreciate it, and thank you for all of your time. All right, let's get into our opinions on this record. I've spoken too much about this record. I love this album. I think this is a perfect 10 out of 10 no skips album. I think this is a perfect way to introduce somebody to the theatricality of emo. Yeah. We'll get into this when we talk more about each individual track. But I also think that this is a band of like kids, like 17, 18-year-olds punching way above their weight class with their talent and skill. And I think that is a sign of like who these guys are. Brendan Urie is obviously I think a generational talent. His vocals on this record are insane. I think that it's something that only him and Patrick Stump can do. There's
only 2 of them in the world.
There's literally 2 guys that can do this, and they're both the same person. Never seen them in a room together, have you?
Oh my God.
This is a generational record. There's a reason this is one of the top 4 acts in emo. When We Were Young is a sign that like this record means a lot to a lot of people, and the want to hear this record in full, as long as it's Brendan singing it, is there. And that's all I have to say about the members of this record.
I think the big thing is when you get into also the fandom of it all with Ryan Ross and Brendan Urie.
I know.
Lots of things there. There's a lot of argumentation that goes on about, is this really Panic if Ryan Ross isn't in it, because he did write a lot of this. And it is very personal. But I do also see this other perspective. At the end of the day, it is something that is so impactful for our scene. Sometimes you may have to actually detach a little bit from it, because I think realistically, unless there is a coming to Jesus moment for everyone, I don't think we're going to see Ryan Ross with Brendan Urie at this.
I tell all these kids to stop being so parasocial, because
They're not.
I know they're not going to, but like, you don't know these people. You don't know what has happened over the years. Brendan Urie has gone basically quiet on the internet because he's focusing on his life. He's focusing on his family, and he does this because he loves it. He loves Panic at the Disco too. I can see it when we've seen him live many times on albums that people don't like, people aren't into. But if I can say, this band has never had the same lineup since they made this record. True. It has changed every single time. And we weren't in the room when Ryan Ross and John Walker decided to leave, when they liked making the Pretty Odd, and Brendan and Spencer wanted to make Fever You Can't Sweat Out 2 with Vices and Virtues.
Perfect album.
Great record. So we are not in those rooms. We are not aware of what they're talking about in the conversation they've had since then. What we can do is speculate as fans, and we can talk about this as fans. And certainly I do think that Panic at the Disco, as the entity that it is, has traditionally just been Brendan Urie. That's what it is. And it's only because Ryan Ross wrote so many lyrics on this record, this album in particular, which is very good. The lyrics are very good.
Yeah.
But Brendan started writing lyrics after this. Brendan added some stuff of his own onto records after this. Can't take that away. Also, he is the vocalist. He is saying the words out loud of his mouth.
I mean, we've also had this conversation prior just about what happens when a band swaps out their vocalist. If you try to switch out Brendan Urie for Panic at the Disco, it's not
You're
Panic.
wrong.
It's not Panic at the Disco.
wrong.
It's a completely different band.
This is an album that was made by these people. This is not a band that was made by all the same people for the entirety of the band. So I think in the context of this record, I look at this and I say, this album is amazing. And I'm so happy that it was created by these people at that time. And that's what it is. The next record was made by John Walker, came in and made Pretty Odd with the band. And then after that, John Walker and Ryan Ross said, I don't want to do Panic at the Disco anymore. And that's how it played out. Can't really change that. And it's maybe in the future there will be differences made there. But at least for the moment, that's what it is. We don't need to be parasocial about it. You don't know these people.
Don't be parasocial challenge 2025, but you can't. I just remember being in one of my old friends' houses when I was in middle school and listening to this album. And it was just so wildly different from what I was used to. And it kind of drew me in more, again, with the theatricality behind it all. Just kind of progressing. Pretty Odd was never something I was super into. So when I was trying to go more into their discography later, once I become a little bit more cognizant of what all of this was, Fever was still that one that I was like, this fits into my indie little dream girl Tumblr core aesthetic.
Oh, yeah.
Like high school, like that was it for me. And that's where it really started to grow a little bit more. That's also why I love Vices and Virtues as well.
It's Fever You Can't Sweat Out too.
I just think it's a great album because, again, it's very, very difficult just looking from now till then to think of other acts or other bands that have done anything similar that has been like kind of a 10 out of 10, really. If we're going to be honest. We're going to be honest, all right?
Yeah, we're going to be honest about it.
We're going to be honest.
10 out of 10.
It's very
No skips.
difficult to find another band that has done anything to this level.
This high level. You know, this record was recorded in like a matter of weeks.
Yeah, for $11,000.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Matt Squire, who we've had on the pod before, also did our friends CD Burners podcast as well. It's one of their most watched episodes because he goes so in depth on like, the production of it. Brendan was sick for the majority of the recording and only could record vocals for like the last week. So a lot of this is done while Brendan Urie was like sick. If you've ever heard of the flu game, that Michael Jordan like had the flu and went out and played like the best game of his life because he was like so like sick. He's like, he was like, I'm not feeling well, but I'm going to play harder than I ever have.
Because
and I
I'm
do
so
think
sick, yeah.
this is a little bit of like Brendan Urie's flu game here, but it's also like his first attempt, which is insane to me. But also because they had all that time and he couldn't record vocals, they'd already laid down all like the band's tracks, but they went ahead and just like recorded a bunch of the other stuff because like, well, we have studio time. Let's just get this instrument on here. Let's like have studio musicians come in and play this on this part. Why not? Like we're literally just waiting.
We're just waiting, hanging out.
Yeah,
So why not utilize the time?
And Brendan is also at this time already a multi-instrumentalist, so he was playing a lot of the additional stuff on this record too, just kind of experimenting and playing around with different ideas and things. And I do think this record would not be so perfect if not for those exact moments that happened. If Brendan was able to like lay down the vocals so early, they may not have been able to do a lot of the additional things that were added to this record in their downtime. And I think that's an additional thing you got to think about when you're thinking about the making of this record.
Yeah.
So crazy.
The big thing is too, again, like if he's sick and that's how his voice sounds, recovery sick or sick.
How are you going to sound when you're at your best,
That's
bro?
the thing. And we've seen him before. I've seen him in a college stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. It's college gymnasium in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. And it was phenomenal. And I know that there's been a bunch of people, the last tour that they did do, saying, oh, we can't hit these high notes.
You can say whatever you want.
Which is crazy. We saw them 2 nights. 2 nights.
Yeah, 2 nights on that tour.
Man
Sounds
was hitting
good.
those high notes. I would say doing it a little bit too egregiously, I think just because there's
he
so
can
much.
relax, but he's also like so talented. He's like, why would I relax?
Right. Well, I think there was more internet backlash during that time. So he was like, I need to prove this maybe. But I'm like, he can still do it. That's the thing.
You can say whatever you want about Brendan Urie. You cannot say that the motherfucker can't sing. Let's talk about some key tracks and highlights on this record. Did you know, because I was unsure of this, the first single off this record was The Only Difference Between Martyrdom and Suicide is Press Coverage.
No, that's crazy to me. It's a great
It peaked
song.
at 77 on Billboard Hot 100. That was the first single that was released from this. I Write Sins Not Tragedies was the second single released on this.
Mm-hmm.
That peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, certified 8 times platinum, and won MTV VMA Video of the Year of 2006.
Oh.
So that is, I mean, obviously everybody knows that song.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the song.
That's the song.
I still think it's an interesting pop song. Like, it is a pop song now, but in the same way that I think Sugar We're Going Down is an interesting pop song, it's like this isn't really a pop song. It has weird instrumentation. It has a chorus, but
Music video's weird,
the music
too.
video is crazy. Like, art style of the music video is definitely part of the legend of this song. I just think it's a weird pop structured song that was so popular that now is like played everywhere, that everybody knows all the words to.
Pop just means popular, so it doesn't even have to be. It just became popular in our mainstream ecosystem. There's a lot of normies who listen to the song, but they don't listen to much other. Panic at the Disco.
I think any normie knows this record, and they might know, but It's Better If You Do. But It's Better If You Do was the third single, more that ragtime, horns and string parts. Lying Is the Most Fun a Girl Can Have Without Taking Her Clothes Off is the fourth single. That's from the first part, but obviously I think that's a weird song to release as a single too.
I mean, I think so, because that also did have a music video, and that music video was also a little bit odd.
Strange. The band isn't in it. And the last single was Build God and Then We'll Talk.
Which is, my thing is, obviously a straight 10/10 banger album, but
It's great.
These are not singles, and especially the order.
Yeah.
That would, coming from a radio side, I would pick as like a release order by any means.
That's why I'm like, they took some risks. After I think they saw the success of I Write Sins, maybe they changed up their direction of what they wanted to do. Because Build God is not a pop song. That is not a song that should be released to radio. It's basically just doing Sound of Music lyrics at the bridge. It's not at all a song that should be released as a single. And I'd say Lying Is the Most Fun is also not really a traditional single.
I mean, I think the Lying is a little bit more catchy. I think it's dramatic.
Do you know the reference of Lying Is the Most Fun a Girl Can Have Without Taking Her Clothes Off, but It's Better If You Do?
I know it's from that one movie.
This is a movie that I watched before this album came out called Closer. Stars Jude Law, Clive Owen, Natalie Portman, and Julia Roberts. There is a line in it that Natalie Portman says where Clive Owen is in a strip club And he says, like, tell me something true. And Natalie Portman says, lying is the most fun a girl can have without taking her clothes off, but it's better if you do. And I'm like, Pete Wentz saw this movie and said, that's it. Because Pete Wentz also wrote He Tastes Like You, Only Sweeter, Thanks for the Memories, which is also a line from that same movie. And I think that this was just a movie that Pete Wentz saw and said, that's what we're doing now. And gave like some lyrics and gave some titles to Panic at the Disco for it. I find that there is a lot of Pete Wentz's influence on like what we should do on this in that way. Not in the release of the singles, which if we're talking label, like Decadence was the label. It was
right.
Pete.
Yeah. Pete Wentz only just
Dr.
signed
Pete.
his and here you go, guys. Have fun with it. Like, let's work together. But we know that Pete Wentz is an insane man who has
Hella
so many
influence on this.
Yeah. A lot of poetic, non-poetic emo stuff.
I think Ryan Ross is a better lyricist than Pete Wentz. Like by far and above.
I
a
think,
better
yeah.
lyricist.
I mean, if we're comparing we read some of these lyrics, there's some vocabulary I picked up as a kid that I said, I don't know what that means. I'm going to figure it out.
I had to try to correct everybody's pronunciation of caricature and aubergine, which is a shade of maroon, I believe. I don't know.
It's like maroon orangey. It's very White Girl Autumn vibes, if that helps you.
I think that Lying is the Most Fun is my favorite song on this record, and it might be one of my favorite songs of all time. I don't know what it is about this song, but I think the blend of the lyrics, the louds and the softs, the electronic parts, like the piano part, like I love the piano part in the background of the chorus.
I think it does incorporate a lot of different stuff within it. I don't know if I would say it's my personal favorite, but I think it is something that was and is a higher ranking song than even I Write Sins, at least for me. Yeah. And that again could be because I hear overplayed so many times. Yeah,
I can't think back on it and decide if that really is like the best song on this record, the standout track on this record. I'm like, I don't know. I can't be a judge of that anymore.
I mean, I think here's the thing. I don't know if you could. It's like choosing your favorite child almost with some of it.
Could you choose your favorite song on this record?
Yeah, there's a good reason these tables are numbered.
That song is so good.
That was, okay, so aside from I Write Sins, that was the other first Panic song I ever heard. And I said, this is it.
That was a whole lore thing about that there was like demos that were released. It was, I believe, released on Pure Volume, and they were starting to get leaked. That's actually the first place I heard them because somebody brought the demos to a party I was at.
Whoa.
And they were like, yo, you should hear this new song. Didn't tell me who it was. Started playing it, and I was like, oh, is Fall Out Boy good now? Because I really like this. And they're like, no, it's a new band. And then I started listening to them. I believe that was like the summer of 2005, before college. Panic at the Disco did not exist as a band until I was already in college. I was in my freshman year when this band came out, when I had this album released. But I believe that the first place I heard it was off that demo and said, oh, this is like if Fall Out Boy was good. And then I heard Infinity on High, and I was like, oh, Fall Out Boy is good now.
Oh, my God.
I had to go back. I had to learn. I had to educate myself. But Infinity on High was like when Fall Out Boy got good. And I was like, this is if Fall Out Boy was good.
They were always good.
I know what you're going to say. But the demo was such a big lore piece of this because everybody who was in the know and in the scene started hearing rumblings of this band. Obviously, the demos are also what got Pete Wentz to sign them. But it also was like, no, we got to let people hear this. We got to let people know about this. You can't just hold back on this. So they started to like leak it a little bit. And that's how I heard it. I don't remember which songs were on it, but I know Time to Dance and I believe Press Coverage were on that demo. But I'd have to look it up. But I believe, if anything, the first song I probably heard was Press Coverage.
Okay.
Or Time to Dance, which probably was the first single.
Press Coverage was the second one, like my second, like top
song of the album?
Yeah.
Damn.
I also want to say I do like the intermission, and not as like a standout track by any means, but I do enjoy that they actually put time into their intermission.
Yep.
And they built it up as if you were actually in a theater, old-timey theater. Like,
do you know where the
1900s.
sound sample is from?
No.
The sample of the radio that they use in that? It's from the War of the Worlds radio play.
Wow.
Yeah. Literally, they start off the radio play with like the music, and then they interrupt it, and then they say like, "Oh, there might be something happening, like aliens coming down." Yeah. They go, "Oh, wait, we don't have any more reports, so we will now continue with our piano interlude." So it actually is reversed, where they like say, "Due to circumstances under our control," after they say, "We now continue with our piano interlude." More lore.
There we go.
It's from the War of the Worlds radio play. There you go.
Love it.
Lizzie, do you have any spicy takes about this record?
I don't think I necessarily do, other than I think I Write Sins is overplayed at this point. It's beaten to death. I hate it, but
It's still fun, even
no,
if it's
it
overplayed.
is. But if somebody said, I love Panic at the Disco, I love this song, and they put on I Write Sins, I'm like, oh.
I mean, we know too much. We are too in the knowledge. Like, would I love to hear Camisado out and about? Of course.
Yeah.
Would I love to hear Nails for Breakfast? Of course. But that's not what gets the people moving and grooving. Time to Dance should have been a single. That should get people moving and grooving.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
I mean,
the only
it's
I'll
called
say.
Time to Dance, so.
It's so good.
I know.
It's so good.
Do you have any spicy takes?
No.
Yeah.
The problem is, you know, when you say like spicy takes, like my only thing would be Brendan, stop avoiding this album and just play it. But now they're doing it when we were young.
Yeah, so here we are.
Death of a Bachelor Tour, they were doing the medley, and I'm like, bro, just do the songs. Just add them back.
Yeah, just take out a couple other ones and just be like, here you go.
You're ending with I Write Sins, and you're doing 9 in the Afternoon, and those are the only songs from the Ryan Ross era, which, again, not trying to be parasocial here, but like clearly there's a reason for that.
Right.
But I think your fans and the fans of this band as a whole entity are clamoring for some of that to come back. And I think that avoiding it once the emo boom came back and saying, nah, we're not going to do that. Like Fall Out Boy avoided doing their nostalgia tour for a long time. I'm like, bro, just do it. But now he's doing it. So hell yeah.
Yeah.
Capitalism is not a bad thing, and it does work.
Don't like that at all.
All right, let's wrap this up by asking the final question of these episodes. Is this one of the 100 greatest emo albums of all time?
Yeah.
I think this record is in my top 3 of all time.
Again, we need to start like writing this down and make a
We are
whole
gonna.
thing,
So
dude.
the plan is that we're gonna
have
do
to.
a stream of this.
Yeah.
We're gonna put together a board or something that we will be ranking these over time. We'll be adding, we'll be adjusting it, and we want to make sure it's an interactive experience for everybody at home. But we will be. In general, I'm just saying right now, for me, this is one of my top 3 of all time, and I know that without knowing other records, without thinking about it.
I would have to do top 5.
Yeah.
Just to give wiggle room for other stuff.
Yeah.
But also we have different tastes, so that can also
as we
change.
should. I think the glory of that is that we can have different 100 top albums.
According to the internet, if we do, we should just end it all.
I know. We're trying to
Crazy.
not be controversial for the sake of views, but I think for both of us, this is ranking near the top as one of the best emo records of all time. It would be on my Mount Rushmore, top albums of the emo scene. Seems like a question everybody's asking now. It's been like the interview question I keep seeing
Which
in
is
everybody's
crazy.
fucking
I'm just like, it's
things.
such a weird way to put it, but sure.
It would be like, what would you play for somebody to show them emo?
Yeah.
And like my top 3 or top 4 records would be that. So this is an album I would say, listen to this. It will explain everything.
Emo music is like, here's Fall Out Boy, here's Paramore, here's Panic at the Disco, because
Yeah.
they've also been on mainstream radio, so you can kind of just...
You kind of know, but you need more of like...
Like, I'm not going to tell a normal person off the street who asked me, yeah, Arm's Length
No.
falls in. They're going to say, who? I'm saying, no, never mind.
Well, yeah, we love this record. Probably not a lot else to say about it. We just are absolute Panic at the Disco heads.
Yeah.
Disco fiends, you might call us.
Whoa.
We're just massive fans. We're excited for When We Were Young this year. We'll be watching that this week when this comes out. So we'll report back if it's completely changed our opinion about the record, but probably not. What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? What are your takes? Is this one of your favorite emo records of all time? Let us know in the comments. And again, you can watch an extended version of this episode if you become a member here on YouTube or subscribe to us on Patreon or volume.com. And we will also have a review of the Cavs Whisper War coming out on the channel at the exact same time this is dropped. So please let us know. Subscribe, comment, leave a like if you liked it. And from us here at the Emo Social Club, goodbye!